If you would have walked around the locker room after week 2 and walked around the locker room today and compared notes, I think confidence is a big one for us, and I think that goes with a lot of different things. But obviously, getting a few victories gives us a little more confidence. I think guys, buying in and seeing some results transfer over from practice field to the game, even though we weren't winning some of those games, you could just see it building in guys and guys really buying in, and I would say that's probably the biggest thing.
Ryan, what do you hope other players on this team take away from the experience of playing alongside you?
I think part of it for me, every stop that I make is, even though it's the NFL, you're still allowed to have fun, you're still allowed to enjoy your job. There's a lot of hard work that we put into it, physically and mentally. It's a grind all season long, but at the same time, Sunday is the reward, and you're allowed to go out there and play free and have fun, and trying to do your best but not worrying about consequences, just going out there and playing loose, and hopefully that rubs off on guys a little bit.
Pocket presence. And is that something that can be taught, or is that something you just have to have?
Hey, it's a tough, probably a little bit of both. I think you have to have some awareness, just innate in you ability there, but there's also some of it that can be learned, in that the time clock in the back of your head, having a feel for rush patterns, or knowing if there's a guy free, or knowing techniques of guys rushing around the edge, or inside moves and things like that. There's a certain feel, but a head start you can give yourself with some of that stuff going into a game. For me, it's just always, it's come naturally to me a little bit, and I'm not the fastest or most athletic guy in the world, but kind of try to pride myself on being a guy that has decent awareness back there, and it's a hard thing to acquire, but over the years I think you get better and better at it as you do it.
When you see a guy who is drafted number 1 and a guy who is drafted, say, in the top 10, is the pressure, can you tell that there is more pressure on the number 1 pick, or is it just all the same if you're a top drafted quarterback?
Some of that is hard for me because I obviously wasn't that, but just in seeing it over the years, I think there's, if you're number 1, I think you have added pressure, more pressure than anybody, but really a top 10 pick where, you're all of a sudden the face of a franchise from day one, and being a team that had a top 5 or top 10 pick, maybe not necessarily going to the best team in terms of throwing a guy out there. And I think that's why sometimes you see guys that are drafted a little bit later that get into a system where there's good infrastructure, there's a good running game, there's a good defense, and they can kind of have time to learn a little bit and not necessarily rely solely on the quarterback to win games right away. I think Russell Wilson is a great example of a guy that went to a situation, has been a really good quarterback, but certainly developed into an elite, top 5 type quarterback. But that just didn't happen on day one. He was given some time to develop, and has always been talented. But that's an example I think you point to of a guy that went somewhere with great infrastructure and has really done a nice job in his career to continue to get better every year.
Where does the pressure manifest itself in highly drafted quarterbacks? Is it off the field? Is it on the field? Is it just everything surrounding them, the media attention?
There's a lot of different things, but I also think as a young guy walking into a locker room with grown men, it's a little bit different than college, in that all of a sudden you look around and there might be a guy 5 years older than 10 years older than he might be playing with a Hall of Fame receiver or left tackle or whatever it is, and all of a sudden your job is to keep these guys happy, and that's a tough job sometimes, and one that maybe you haven't had to do before. I think the other thing is, no matter what, in the NFL you're going to face adversity. You're going to struggle, you're going to make mistakes, everything's not going to be perfect, and sometimes the number 1 pick is a guy that in high school probably went undefeated, and then in college was very similar. Then you get to the NFL and there's a struggle, and you're not sure what that guy is made of in terms of something he's never faced before. And that's why I always like and enjoy kind of the stories of the struggle, the guys that haven't necessarily always had it perfect, and to see you get a glimpse and a snapshot of how they responded to those situations. And I think that's really important for a quarterback, and sometimes hard to see evaluating guys.
I always wonder with kickers, I know you don't kick in a dome a lot. Is there any extra confidence when you go in a dome?
I mean, depends how you look at it. It could be, there's no wind obviously, and so if you're kicking left to right today, based on how the balls come out your foot, it could be a little less, draw on the ball because there's no wind.
Andrew, they obviously had a decision to make about which of the guys to bring back, you, Jonathan, etc. Had you known it was heading this way, or was it a surprise to you when they told you we're going to designate you to return?
Yeah, honestly, I was just taking it day by day. I was unsure, and I was just staying my course, continue to do whatever I could to get better and continue rehab and just being able to play. So I was unsure, and I was just gonna put my foot down and do what I do best.
How many? Do you remember your first interaction with Coach Boyer? Was it at UTEP's pro day? Was it?
No, it was actually on draft day. Seriously, texted me like there's never a day he's not gonna be on my ass. Like I said, when I lost the weight, he's on. I have a bag of chips, he's on like throw that away. I used to think like he's joking, but he was serious. And now I understand what that did for me. So.
What's the Needham diet?
Just not as much fast food. I'm big on fries, chicken nuggets.
You completely give them up, or you just cut back?
Cut back. Yeah. So, but at that moment, I wasn't trying to eat any of that. So, and spinach, that was big for me. Popeye, I'd always watch that. So I just get in there, get a big bowl of spinach, and just eat it like chips, something. You know what I'm saying?
The opportunities he's getting this weekend. It's a huge opportunity for him. If I never call him, he's going to be in shape. He's crazy. He should have fresh legs. I'm sure his arms. Excited for him. He's a competitor. Get to his name calling for a while. And we were in second grade together. He was nothing but a leader of that team. And I'm anxious to get on the field and showcase what he's got.